Hello and welcome to Kevin in the Cabin. Today is going to be a cabin episode, which means to talk about stuff on the cruise ship. Specifically on this episode, everything about the cabin, which is where I live, practice, entertain myself, make videos, take plethora of naps, sometimes exercise, and keep all my belongings while I'm on the ship. Like I've mentioned in past videos, I've worked on 2 different cruise lines, and what I'm going to do is talk about the cabin situation on the past cruise line as well as my current cruise line. Both cruise lines offered us several different styles of cabins. Not that we had a choice in which ones we got, they were all just rather different and you got what you got. The first cruise line I worked for, we had 2-person cabins, which meant we had a bunk bed and 1 person per bunk. More often than not, the cabins that we did have, even though we did have 2 people, I felt like with plenty of space. At no moment did I feel cramped. Except for 1 cabin that I had. My final contract I had with the previous cruise line had my roommate and I in a temporary cabin for several months. The temporary cabins were furthest away from the rest of entertainment and up on, I think, deck 10 when everyone else was on deck 3. So they were on the forward of the ship on deck 3, and we were in the back on deck 10. So at the end of the night when we're all saying goodbye from crew bar or the gig or whatever, we'd go up this way, they'd go down this way. The temporary cabins were supposed to be exactly as I said, temporary, but they kept us in there for the entirety of the contract. And my cabin mate was the keyboard player for the Latin duo, and our choices were either he could play keyboard or we both could be in the room. That's how small that cabin was. Luckily, it only happened the 1 time. When I did have the sizable cabins for 2 people and was still within the same corridor as the rest of entertainment, it was behind the main stage, which was really smart keeping all of entertainment back there because the main stage was usually the last thing going on for the night. And if you have people who have early morning work with a stage show going on, it's going to keep them awake. They would more often than not keep all of entertainment in the same corridor, because usually if you're working entertainment, you're going to be up a little later, maybe coming back from the bar later, or even just finishing up work later, because entertainment's usually a late night thing anyway. And I think the main stage shows usually finished up around like 9:30, maybe 10:30, depending on the schedule. And if you had like a 5 a.m. shift, you wouldn't want to be hearing a main stage show going on, when you're trying to get some sleep and get ready for the day. So they kept us all back there because the noise and everything, it logistically made more sense. Now, each cabin that I had with the previous contract did have a small TV, plenty of closet space, drawers, bathroom, shower, everything like that you needed, just all within a small package. Except for that 1 cabin, which was a very small package. One thing that was very nice within these cabins was the small TV that they did provide for us, and they had it hooked up to like the ship's network. And the ship's network, we were able to check, schedules, other events going on, I think onboard accounts, so how much money we owed, or credit we had on our account, as well as channels that consistently streamed movies. We didn't get to choose what we watched. It was like old-fashioned TV where you watch what was on. Now, with my very first paycheck, I did buy a Nintendo Switch, so this was something that really kept me occupied when I wasn't able to practice, or just had some free time to kill, or wanted to have some friends over to play some Mario Kart. We got a handful of noise complaints. I will go into much greater detail about practicing on the ship in a future video, but I will say in this video, having a cabin mate made it very difficult to practice in the cabin. Even though I did have a practice mute, I never wanted to bother them. So what we would have to do was come up with a schedule, and I would wait until they were out of the cabin for me to put in the practice mute and practice, warm up, get everything done that I needed to do. And like I said, I'm going to go into much greater detail about that in a future video. Now, talking about cabin mates, I was always very lucky with such cool cabin mates. All 3 of the cabin mates I had were all amazing people. Truly, truly, truly amazing people. And I keep in touch with most of them today. And I will say having an okay cabin, but sharing it with someone so cool made it significantly better. However, being a grown adult and sharing a room, I've learned is not for me. Even with that said, it really wasn't that bad. All of my cabin mates and I understood how important private time was, or just alone time, or whatever you want to call it. The bunk beds did have curtains, so if I was like in my bed, I just close the curtains, sit there, play Nintendo Switch with my headphones on as if I wasn't there. And we would even ask each other, hey, are you going to the cabin later? You mind if I just have like an hour or 2 to myself? And we just, work something out there just to keep the peace and keep sanity and keep alone time and private time. Something I did like that the company did is that they try to keep similar positions together. So if you were within the band, they'd try to room you together with someone in the band. If you were a dancer, they'd room you together. A host, they would room you together. Or more often than not for me, they would room me with one of the other horn players. My final roommate, which was in the broom closet of a cabin that I mentioned before, was the keyboard player for the Latin duo. His English wasn't great, my Spanish most certainly is not great, but we got along so well. Them keeping similar positions together within cabins was very, very smart. There was one time that one of the bandmates got, I want to say it was someone from the shops, rooming with them. In the shops, they work a lot more hours, usually earlier, sometimes even later. So when we would finish playing, they were already asleep, so they had to like be really, really quiet when going into their own home and make sure not to disturb them. Not that the cabin mate was bad, the situation was bad. I think things were settled and they did end up like trading cabins and getting more similar schedules together within those cabins, which did, ease the problem. Now for my current cruise line, I have personally had two styles of cabins. My first few contracts, including the fill-ins, I had a 2-person cabin, but it was just me in there, which meant I had a bunk bed, but still just me in there. And the cabin I have now is what is called an officer's cabin, which means no bunk beds, it's a full-size bed and double the amount of storage. Now, even though I have had a 2-person cabin, this doesn't mean I was sharing the cabin. With this particular cruise line and the line of work that I do, I have a solo cabin, which means it is my cabin and no one else's from the start. The previous cruise line, the only way to get a solo cabin is if you were the band leader. With the current cruise line, right out of the get-go, you have your own cabin. And being able to be alone and decompress and shut that door and know no one's gonna be in there really does help the time fly on these very long contracts. Now, I don't have a preference between having a bunk bed cabin or the full-size bed cabin. I think I may prefer the full-size just because I can kind of stretch out a little better. But even having the bunk bed cabin really wasn't too bad because having the bunk bed was just kind of a really big shelf to me. So I'd keep my luggage up there so I wouldn't have to unpack everything, put it all in the dressers and the drawers and everything. Cabin styles aside, either bunk bed or the full-size bed, each cabin does have a very large TV that's also connected to the ship network where I can pick and choose what movies I'm watching. There's like some live TV on there. You can look at like the bow or aft cameras just so you can see like a live feed. I bring my Xbox or PlayStation with me, so I at least have something to do in between practicing and gigs. And they mostly have the entire band together in the same corridor. Now, I wish I had the hindsight of me making this channel as well as making this very specific video. I wish I took a video of every cabin that I was ever in, just so I could have like a side-by-side to show you guys. I think it's a little intrusive asking someone else who does have a different style of cabin than me, because that is their home. Your cabin, that's your home. So I don't want to like betray any trust by asking them, hey, can I record your home? In the meantime, I did record my current cabin so you guys have an idea of what it is. Alright, so this is what's called the I-95. It's kind of like the highway of the ship. I wanted to start the video here so you kind of see like where I need to go to get to my cabin. So let's take this little side door and check out how much the sound cuts off once I get into here. It's very quiet in here. Luckily, I'm right off the I-95 right here so I can grab everything from crew mess I need to. This is the cabin itself. So I got my desk where I keep most everything. A little messy, I gotta do a little better cleaning that. My cabin steward did come by. That's something I forgot to mention as well. On both the lines, we do have cabin stewards. It's dudes that'll come up in our cabins and clean up everything that we may need. They also pick up the dry cleaning as well as hanging on the door there in the bathroom. It's a rather small bathroom, but it's all I really need. It's nothing crazy. That shower curtain likes to stick to you though, with it being such a small shower. There's my trumpet case there and a little nook and cranny there. Perfect fit. Everything here in the cupboards, fit everything in there just fine. Again, my desk is super messy. Both the closets are mine. Like I say, I'm not sharing a cabin. Just throw everything in there. Look at all those wire hangers. And yeah, like I said, the main thing is the bed and the TV there. Got my Xbox plugged in for everything I may need. But yeah, that's the cabin. As they've recently, like I said, bumped us up to officer cabin, so I get this big old bed all to myself, which is terrific. I forgot to mention down here is where I keep all my shoes and whatnot. Dressers under there. You can pop up the bed as well. There's more storage, but honestly, I have so much of a hassle I don't even bother with it. I just put the luggage in the closet like y'all saw. Also a little chest right here. You can put your luggage in there if you need to. Again, it's just effort I don't want to exert, so I just throw it there in the in the closet. But thank you guys so much for watching this video and making it to the end and checking out what the cabin is. Like, share, and subscribe. I'll be trying to upload twice a week now. I'm kind of getting better in a groove, but I'm also almost done with this contract. We are 2 weeks out, and woo, we are ready to go home. And one thing I always say is that even if it's a good contract or bad contract, when it's time to go home, it is time to go home. And let me tell y'all, it is time to go home. But I'm very excited about going back home. I get to see my dog, see my mom, see my rest of my family and friends and everything. And most importantly, relax. Maybe not even touch the trumpet for like a week. I try to trick myself and I'll only play the cornet or the flugelhorn. Just trick my brain into keeping my chops up without playing the trumpet. But anyway, thank you guys so much for joining me in the cabin, and I'll see y'all next time.